here. I do appreciate all of you for supporting NAACP, because the D9 organizations, along with the church, truly is the foundation of the NAACP. And I only mention the sororities because there's only one important fraternity, that's Omega Psi Phi, but I won't go into that conversation beyond that. Alphas, Kappas, Iotas, I appreciate you all as well. I do want to say that we are living in troubling times. Troubling times in a way in which if we don't turn to each other as opposed to turn on each other, we will all be destroyed as a result. For the NAACP, an organization that's been around for 114 years, we have seen times like this before. History is important. History is in many ways the guidepost to understand the current as we navigate towards a future that's more inclusive and healthy. And sometimes individual agendas get in the way of collective health. Some people measure health of a society by three very clear measurements: how well we are caring for our elders, are we preparing and protecting our young people for a future that's incumbent upon their ability to provide all that they have to offer for their household, their families, the community, and society at large, and if we are in fact protecting the rights of the disadvantaged, however we define one's disadvantage. And if we fail in any of those areas, we are lacking in terms of being a healthy society. The job of the NAACP and many of the organizations that have been founded in the African American community, if you take away the semantics and look at our missions, it is all about helping people. It's an important mission. I don't care whether or not you're a member of Prince Hall Mason, the Eastern Star, one of the D9 organizations, the Missionary Baptist Church of America, Missionary Baptist Church USA, Kojic, Church Christ Holiness, any of our mainline denominational organizations, AME, AMEZ, CME, all of those foundational organizations. Our mission collectively is about creating a healthy society and to ensure that this social contract we call the Constitution live up to its promise. It's a unique piece of work we have to carry out as an organization, as volunteers from across the country. You know, I cannot wait to get off of this stage, go finish that football game and go to bed, because this is the third city in 3 days, from Austin, Texas, to Sumter, South Carolina last night, here tonight, and on the 6:20 flight in the morning, because our job is to create a healthy society across this country as we prepare for next year's election. Really important. But as we work towards doing that, we cannot get distracted by the headlines of the day. The headlines of the day will have us chase this buzzword and this phrase and this hand of deception and this thing over there, realizing that at the end of the day, in a democracy, our vote is our currency, and how we collectively deposit our currency for the society that we own is the society that we will get. And if we don't deposit our currencies to vote, if we don't collectively think through how we should deposit it together, we will be victims of government as opposed to owners of government. It's really important for us to put in context as we talk about this in Western Wayne, Michigan, and Southeast Michigan, in greater Detroit, because it is in this greater community we call Southeast Michigan, you all would define democracy after the vote in 2024. How goes Michigan? It will give a strong indication how it will go next year in November. And I recall growing up in Detroit, and that was a level of pride around voting in Detroit during this period of time. And since that time, we've lost substantial population within the city limits. Substantial population. People say, well, where did they go? Those who had some resources greater than others may have gone to Oakland County. So it was more difficult to go to Macomb County, but people went to Macomb County. But the majority of the people who fled the city limits came to Western Wayne County. So if I take the privilege, I'm not talking to Western Wayne County, I'm talking to Detroit. Before I continue, I do want to recognize Congresswomen Dingell and Rashida Tlaib. Please stand and be still. I want to recognize them because they are an example of we have to turn to each other and not on each other. In this climate. I recognize them because they understand the health of any society is how well we protect and prepare our young people, not destroy our young people. It's really important. Geopolitics is what they are, but at the end of the day, in this country, we must set the standards by which human beings should exist in harmony and not be the provocateurs of conflicts causing harm to young people. Some of you understand what I'm talking about. If you don't, let me put it this way. No one chooses where they are born, to whom, what family, what region of the globe, or what community, and they should have the right to survive. They should have the right to survive. I grew up in Detroit, as was said earlier, and I loved my community. It was a beautiful community. It was a community of immigrants. Folks immigrated from Alabama. They immigrated from Mississippi. They immigrated from Arkansas. They immigrated from Georgia. A community of immigrants. Fleeing hostile territories where they were being oppressed and denied opportunity to work for a fair wage for their labor. Fleeing persecution because of the color of their skin. Or y'all talk about Latino people, we're talking about black folks. Now look around this room, all of us are immigrants. You think about it. Look at your family history. Most of you are second, third, and some are fourth and fifth generation who migrated either during the Great Migration 1 or Great Migration 2. Immigrants. Others who immigrated from other countries because of persecutions and failed governments and issues that caused them to have to leave from the place of their ancestral birth to come here because it was said there were opportunities and or safety. Immigrants. Others of you who come from some European country because of persecution, whether it was based on religion or lack of opportunity, and you came here because your ancestors or your immediate parents seeking opportunity. Immigrants. Opportunities that was guaranteed under this thing we call a constitution that we know as a social contract. But that contract is only as good as the individuals who are in office to ensure it is provided to all citizens equally. Now, I went through that process because sometimes we get distracted with otherizing. Community. Otherizing people. I don't like you because you're too short. You need to eat more because you're too skinny. You can't fit that through that door, you too big. Your skin tone is too light or too dark, or the way you pray is not the way I pray, therefore something must be wrong with you, not me. Otherwise, the distractions of things that have been placed in front of us intentionally because you have a community or set of individuals who are creating distractions so that we fight each other and not focus on that commitment that we are guided by and called the Constitution. The NAACP was started in 1909 in the backdrop of racial terrorism that was taking place in the black community, and individuals, William Trotter, Monroe Trotter, W.B. Du Bois, and Ida B. Wells, they met in 1907 and 1908 to try to address the question. Then there was a race riot, and another group of people of color, they were not considered white. After the riots in Springfield, asked for the group of blacks to meet with them in New York. Those individuals who were not considered white, but who will be considered white today, as I look around this room and the individuals I see that will be considered white today, in 1909 were not considered white. That race within itself is a social construct created to maintain domination and control and power. Those individuals prayed differently. They were of different faiths. Those individuals came from countries that were fleeing persecutions. Those individuals did not fit the definition in 1909 of whiteness. That whiteness in 1909 was white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. So if your family migrated here from Ireland, and you was of the Catholic faith, you were not considered white in 1909. Your family migrated here from Poland, you was not an Anglo-Saxon, so you were not considered white in 1909. If your family migrated here from Ireland, whether Northern Ireland or Sicily, you were not considered white in 1909 in this country. It's a social construct. It is made up to create division. And the only thing that changed over time from 1909, they ran out of voters. So they began to expand the definition of whiteness to include more people so they can have more votes at the ballot box. Voting is currency. And I can recall learning this, ironically, in Western High School. Western High School was one of those schools of community, in a community of diversity in Detroit, when Detroit was fastly encroaching upon being an 80% black city. One of the last holdover diverse communities. And in that school, you had individuals from Puerto Rico, you had people from Cuba, Castro Cubans, and you had people from Mexico, you had individuals from the Middle East, both Sunni, Shiite, and Chaldeans. You had individuals of Polish background, of Irish background, from Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, all of us being immigrants. And I can recall doing a short period of time when I first got there, there was a teacher, Mr. Rowinski. Mr. Rowinski was a unique fellow because he was a child of immigrants who had come from Poland. And he created a club called the Ethnic Club. And it became the most popular club at Western. Now, for those of you who know anything about Western, it was the smallest high school in Detroit. And I travel across the country, and every time someone asks me, if you're from Detroit, you go to Cass, I say, no, they didn't give me the test to go to Cass. It was one of the safer schools in Detroit because it was so small and everyone knew each other. But Mr. Rowinski, he had the insight to drive home the opportunity of people coming together from their diverse backgrounds, as opposed to allowing the school to break apart because of the diverse background. In the Ethnic Club, he was also a social studies teacher, and he would talk about race as a social construct. And he will force us to begin to think outside of the box, to appreciate that each individual brought to the table a uniqueness. And he will say oftentimes is your uniqueness is your genius. And that if you bring a piece of your uniqueness and you put it with my uniqueness and we put it with her uniqueness, our uniqueness is a genius that will allow us to be stronger together and to thrive together. What a lesson to learn in the 9th, 10th, and 11th grade. By the 12th grade, Mr. Rowinski retired because he became a leader with AFT, and it disappointed all of us because we loved Mr. Rowinski. He began to instill in us the possibility of coalitions. When I look in this room, Western Wayne County, I see Ecorse and River Rouge, and I see Inkster, and I see all of these communities, and I see black, and I see white as defined today, and I see people who pray differently, Jewish and Arabic and Christian, and Lord knows what else is out there. I see all of us. And the uniqueness of this room is the genius of this room. It is a genius that's going to be required to stand together next year to ensure we protect this democracy. Now, some people say, well, now, NAACP, you're nonpartisan. We are. We don't endorse political candidates, but we are political as hell. And we have to be, because in a democracy, your vote is your currency, and that currency defines policy makers whose responsibility primarily is to do three things. Determine who gets taxed, who's not taxed, and what the tax dollars are spent on. That's the job of elected officials. Whether you're talking about the roads that's being paved, the bridges that we cross over, the schools that we sit in, or the facilities that we enjoy, because this facility could not exist unless there was the right permits to allow it to be built and the zoning so that we can be here legally within the ordinances. Who gets taxed, who's not taxed, and what those tax dollars are spent on. And when we get caught up and get distracted about false debates around critical race theory, it's a distraction. It's fake policy. It is a made-up buzz phrase to sow division against within communities. Now, if you think about it for a minute, before that station that I won't name started talking about it as an issue, had anybody ever heard of critical race theory? Anybody? It didn't exist. And you would listen to talk radio, watch shows, and you would think they were teaching preschoolers critical race theory. And with truth be told, what I just talked about, race being a social construct, they would label that as critical race theory. Truth be told, it is the legacy by which we find ourselves in this part of the globe. And most of us, outside of trying to get from one country to the next because of a safe environment, most of us and our families